Hello folks, does anybody recognise this handsome chap? Well, this handsome gentleman has stepped up to the plate and really helped me out with the DR1 build. And to return a favour, I said that I'd be more than happy to paint up this wonderful 3D scanned image of himself. So join in the journey when I try to breathe a little bit of life into this printout, which is really rather fine. And here we go, let's have some fun. Here we go. I'm about to give this mystery gentleman some whiskers. I've mixed up some Milliput, which is a 2-part epoxy. It'll stay usable for quite a long time, so it's ideal for this sort of project. And you can't see it, but I've got a video on screen in front of me of said gentleman, so I can see where the facial hair is. And it's basically a goatee and a tash. So let's apply some Milliput. And I'm just putting the lumps where I think they need to go. It will stick. And once I've done that, I'll try adding a little texture to the beard. I do that by scoring it. I'll wet it, and then finally I'll use a toothbrush to put the fine hair on it. I like the idea of putting the beard on this gent because it just adds a little bit more character, I think. So I'm just using a dental tool here to push it around and get it roughly where I want it. And then once it's in place, I'll start actually shaping it and forming it. And I've just used some, I've wetted a little bit there. I actually licked the end of the thing, so we're not going to eat it, so I'm sure we're safe enough doing that. Because if you wet this Milliput, it actually becomes more workable. But the first stage, it's actually helpful to just get it on. If you start wetting it too much, it can become a bit of a slimy mess. So I think the idea of putting this facial hair on him just adds a little bit more texture and interest. And I've used that term texture before. In modelling, in my view, texture adds interest. Whether it's on a model railway layout, or if it's a little bit of weathering on a plane, or when I used to paint for a hobby, in a painting, texture adds interest and depth. So that's what I'm trying to do here. This 3D print as well has also exaggerated said gentleman's features a little, and by putting a beard on him, I can take some of that out, some of that exaggeration out, and hopefully make for a more realistic look. Now you can see there, all I'm trying to do is add a little bit of material on that I can then start to work. So stage 1 completed, simply getting it on. Let's double check. I'm going to have to mute this, otherwise you'll hear who it is. I've got one of his videos in the background. Like this gent, often run videos in the background while I'm modelling. Often just listening to them and not watching them, but I'll run into the living room, because I model in the kitchen. I'll run into the living area where the TV is if something sparks my interest, and I'll pause and rewind. Some people play classical music. I'll listen to YouTube videos. Okay, right, let's get some, I can't keep licking the end of this, let's get some water so I can start moving this around and it can become a little bit more workable. So there we go. I've added the outline of the facial hair, but I haven't given it any texture yet. I've also taken his jowls out a little bit because I thought he'd been made too skinny. And like me, this gentleman's follically challenged even. However, he's hanging on to the hair around the back, and unlike me, he doesn't shave it all off. So that's in place now, and the first stage is to just start to add a little texture to the Milliput, and all I'm doing is adding some lines, and when it comes to adding the paint, what will actually happen is the paint will run into those lines, and I can use them to actually, oh God, talking and doing is hard, isn't it? I can use them to actually flood in some darker shades and shadows, and that actually makes the texture of the beard look far more realistic. So all I'm doing here is using the tip of this dental tool to add some depth to it, and I'll also then wet the surface very slightly, or use a wet toothbrush rather, and I'll add a little bit more, though I may get away without using that, you know. This might just do the job. You can see what I'm doing here. And I may use some inks to flood in. And I'll add a little bit to the hair. I had to hack away at this 3D print a little bit to get it to stay in the carousel here. There's plenty of surplus. I'm sure he'll be able to alter it. And apparently his better half, fair lady, has done a hat for him. So if I've got this hair coming out the side and the hat, a woolly hat stuck on the top, I think it'll look great. So I'll just carry on with this, adding texture to it, and then you can come back and have a look at what it looks like. Well, there we go. All I've done is I didn't actually use a toothbrush in the end. I used a knife, this dental probe, and you can see that I've added the texture to the face. I've also been watching said gentleman on the video, and he was being a little bit flattered by this scan, so I've added a little bit to the jowls here and a little bit to the bags under the eyes. Hopefully that's a more realistic effect. And for some reason, this 3D print had actually done the eyeballs like a Roman statue with a dint or a hollow where the pupil would be. So I've had to fill them. So there we go. That's where we're at. This will need to thoroughly dry. It really takes 24 hours. So I can't do any more today. I'll pause it there. And then the next time you see it, I'll actually be applying some paint. Do you know who it is yet? Suggestions welcome. Bye now. As a postscript, I've also added, having looked back at the video, I've also added a little bit more depth to this part of the jaw. and I think that's helped the lightness as well. So I hope you can guess who it is now. It's starting to take shape, and once we get some colour on there, of course we need the laugh, don't we? You can't see that here, quite distinctive. There you go. I hope you enjoyed that and found it informative. Simple use of Milliput to improve a 3D print.